Greetings, all. This is Latasha Moore again, and I have returned to discuss the condom intervention program carried out in southern India from 2006 to 2007. Throughout the country of India, approximately 2.5 million people have HIV. Cases are found in men who sleep with men, intravenous drug users, female sex workers, and their male customers. The primary method of transmission is through sex workers and their clients. An organization called Population Services International developed an intervention to combat the issue. The strategy took place in the 100 states where HIV was most prevalent and was carried out through games, plays, and discussions that all surrounded the issue of condom use. Before executing the activities, surveys were conducted to find out the key determinant in the use of condoms, which was found to be the men's beliefs about them. The games, plays, and discussions that were used as interventions subtly pushed these four themes. Now, I want you to definitely keep them in mind. Read them all. I'm not going to read them for you because we're going to come back to these beliefs later. I refer to them as the four emphasized beliefs. Instead of discussing the issue of ethics, as in the last presentation, today I will talk about the intervention's relation to the health belief model. Specifically, I will respond to the following prompt. Once again, won't read it. You can do that for yourself. Foremost, it's necessary to revisit the health belief model for those of you who may not know what it is. The health belief model was developed by the United States Public Health Service in the 1950s to investigate why citizens were not taking advantage of free tuberculosis screenings. They found that the primary reasons were people's beliefs that they weren't likely to contract the illness, which is called perceived susceptibility, and that the screening would not be very beneficial, which is referred to as perceived benefits. Investigators expounded upon these concepts to develop the health belief model. I use terms and phrases I'm familiar with to easily understand and remember each health behavior theory. I like to think of the HBM as the person asking the question, what's that got to do with me? If a person understands how they are involved in a problem, how they can be impacted by the problem, and how they're able to avoid the problem, they are more likely to carry out the actions to do so. The health belief model has 6 constructs. As forementioned, perceived susceptibility is a person's belief that they are at risk for contracting a disease. It involves being realistic and understanding that simply because they are presently asymptomatic does not mean that they will not later contract the disease. Perceived severity or severity is a person's belief about how big of a problem it will be if they happen to become diseased. Perceived benefits involves one's thoughts about how beneficial the actions that are being promoted are in lowering the health risk. The construct that involves the cons or roadblocks to carrying out a health action is known as perceived barriers. Self-efficacy is one's belief in their ability to carry out the action. And finally, cues to action are the final occurrences that push a person to take action. These are dependent upon the person. Everyone differs in what they consider a sign that action is needed. We've discussed the health belief model and the condom use intervention. Now let's put the topics together. We'll begin with perceived susceptibility. The investigating team, or PSI, knew which men were susceptible to HIV because of their knowledge about its high prevalence in sex clients in southern India. They had done extensive research and had hard facts. However, it is not clear the extent to which the team discussed the men's susceptibility with them. The article does not state if they opened the client's eyes about the environment they were living in and how close the threat of HIV was to home. By this I mean it's not known if the researchers blatantly said, you live in one of the states with the highest HIV prevalence, and because you have sex with sex workers, you are even more likely to contract the virus. Because the Indian culture appears to be one of shyness about secular topics, I imagine that the interventionists weren't this explicit. However, this is what I would have considered perceived susceptibility. Nevertheless, the team hinted at this with two of their four emphasized beliefs. Remember, on slide 3, I outlined the four beliefs that were used as themes in each of the activities. The beliefs: no matter what choice you make, you always need a condom in commercial sex. And no matter which sex worker you choose, you always need a condom. Let the men know that they were no exception to the rules. Nothing about the way they carried out the sex act determined if they needed a condom or not. A condom would always be necessary. Next up is perceived severity. The four beliefs are the only indication of what was discussed with the men, and none of the beliefs discussed the consequences of getting HIV. Since the virus was widespread in the state, it may not have been necessary to discuss its severity. It is likely that the men knew at least one person with it and had witnessed the toll it takes on the body. Nevertheless, perceived severity was not discussed. An outright discussion on the consequences of HIV would have been along the lines of: if you contract HIV, etc., etc., will happen to you. The four emphasized beliefs did not include the perceived benefits of condom usage. However, I imagine that it was automatically understood that interventionists were promoting them because of their effectiveness in reducing HIV risk. Why else would all these unique people come to my town and push the use of this little plastic rubber item? It's two different. Sorry, guys. Plastic rubber. This rubber latex item. Excuse me. If the benefits had been explicitly stated, though, it would have been more along the lines of: you should wear condoms because, or condoms reduce your risk of getting HIV by blank percent. At least that's what I would expect. The other two of the program's four emphasized beliefs involve perceived barriers. They addressed some of the concerns the men had and attempted to relieve them of their worries. The two statements are here on the screen. The health belief model's construct of self-efficacy was assessed in the survey, but not heavily stressed in the intervention. Appendix A of the article lists the questions that the men were asked in a survey prior to the implementation of the intervention activities. A portion of the questions assessed self-efficacy. Participants replied agree or disagree to statements like: I can buy a condom from any shop without any fear or embarrassment. Because none of the four emphasized beliefs that were used to construct the activities focused on self-efficacy, it appears that it was not stressed in the intervention. Nevertheless, the article did state that the interventions increased participants' level of comfort with discussing condom usage in public. Plus, the magic ring skit, which was discussed in Appendix C, that was carried out, it demonstrated how to properly wear a condom, which likely heightened the men's confidence. One way in which self-efficacy is strengthened is when one has been exposed to or viewed the behavior. This is known as social modeling. Finally, cues to action was not directly discussed either, but the article did draw an association between the intervention of the activities and the 18% increase in consistent condom use. Researchers believe that the activities pushed men to change their sex behavior. So, which theory best fits this intervention? First, let me share my initial thoughts. When I began preparing this presentation, I did not find a single aspect of the program that related to the health belief model. I think I was looking for cut and paste answers in the article where the researchers wrote, in order to address susceptibility, we informed the participants that blank, blank, blank. My expectations were that the constructs of the HBM would be blatant. However, rereading the article allowed me to think more openly and see the subtle ways in which aspects of the model were addressed. Further, realizing that four primary beliefs about condom usage were infused in all the activities helped me see the model's use in the intervention. Third, the authors even confessed that they based the intervention off of several theories, and I can see bits of all of them: behavioral capacity and observational learning of the social cognitive theory, and behavioral control from the theory of planned behavior. Maybe the intervention's use of multiple theories is why I did not find the HBM to be a perfect fit. I even saw part of a theory that the authors did not mention: diffusion of innovations. As this sentence indicates here in the presentation, program planners had to be strategic in their thinking and consider which location and method of communication would best draw the inconsistent users into the behavior. This coincides with DOI's variable, features of the setting or environmental context. So in summary, no, I do not see the health belief model as a perfect fit for this innovation, but I do not see any of the other theories as ideal either. This intervention carries a piece of each of them. Thanks for your time.